Have you ever noticed that the harder you try not to cry, the more you actually want to cry? Or the harder you try not to think about something, the more it consumes your mind? What if I told you that one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck in painful emotions is because they're trying so hard not to feel them? If you're new here, I'm Amanda Hill. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I'm an author, a speaker, and owner of Connections of Hope Counseling. For more than 20 years, I've worked with people struggling through some of life's most difficult moments. And one thing I've learned over and over again is this: people are rarely overwhelmed by their emotions. They're actually overwhelmed by their fear of their emotions. For example, I remember working with a client who struggled with panic attacks. She would feel her heart race and immediately think, oh no, here we go again. And then she would do everything she could to stop that feeling. She would distract herself, she would fight it, she would try to run from it, she would analyze it, or she would try to control it. But her panic would only get worse. One day I asked her what she thought would happen if she just stopped fighting it. And of course, she looked at me like I was crazy, because everything in her body was telling her to run. I pushed her to try something different. And I left her with some homework that day, which consisted of one simple thing. Instead of her saying to herself, make it stop, she needed to start saying, this is uncomfortable, but it's going to pass. And what do you know? Something pretty incredible happened. Her next panic attack came, it peaked, and then it went down. Now, this was just like it had always done. The difference was this time she finally stayed long enough to notice it. Because emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and then they fall. But if we spend the entire time trying to outrun the wave, we never realize we actually could have survived it. So you may wonder, why do we actually run from our feelings? Well, the truth is, most of us were never taught how to handle difficult emotions. We were taught how to avoid them. Your parents may have advised you to stay busy or told you to distract yourself. Maybe they told you directly not to cry or to be angry, told you not to think about it, move on with your life, be strong. These are things that are really common. The problem with it is that emotions don't disappear when we try to ignore them. In fact, one of the best ways to make an emotion stronger is to fight with it. For example, imagine trying to hold a big beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more pressure builds, and then eventually it comes flying back up at your face. That's exactly how emotions work. The more we suppress them, the more energy they require, and the more likely they are to cause us to explode. I had another client I was working with years ago who was experiencing the end of a long-term relationship, and she was, quite frankly, heartbroken. But as I worked with her, I began to notice her repeating some maladaptive thought patterns. Every day she was telling herself that she shouldn't be upset, she needed to move on, or that she was ridiculous for still feeling heartbroken over her relationship. She had spent months judging herself for feeling sad, months fighting the grief, and months trying to outrun it all. So as time passed, and she and I continued to work together, she finally gave herself permission to stop fighting. This decision came with a lot of tears, of course, but she began journaling, talking more openly about it, and acknowledging what she had lost. And you know what? Within a few weeks, she told me something that I will never forget. She said, the sadness actually feels smaller now that I've stopped running from it. I shared with her that this was likely because her healing didn't actually begin until her acceptance started. This didn't mean she had to accept the hard feelings as much as she had to accept that those feelings existed. You see, one of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing emotions are dangerous, but they're not. They're information. Anxiety tells us something feels uncertain. Sadness tells us that something matters. Anger tells us a boundary may have been crossed. And fear tells us that maybe we perceive some sort of threat. Emotions are simply messengers. We shouldn't be completely ignoring them or allowing them to completely take us over. The healthiest approach is somewhere in the middle. Try challenging yourself to listen and learn from them. Just don't become them. As a therapist, I've had plenty of people tell me that they assume I don't struggle with emotions. But trust me, I do. I've had moments in my own life where I wanted to skip straight past the hurt. Moments where I wished I could fast forward through my own grief, disappointment, and definitely heartbreak. But life has taught me the same lesson I teach my clients. There is no shortcut through emotion. The way out is through. And I can confidently tell you that every time I allow myself to acknowledge a difficult feeling, instead of fighting it, I noticed something important. It passes. Now, it may not be immediately, it may not be as quickly as I wanted it to, but it does always change. And that's because emotions are temporary by nature. The next time you're struggling emotionally, I want you to try these 4 steps. The first step is just name it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Not what you wish you were feeling, not what you think you should be feeling, but what are you actually feeling? Research shows that simply naming emotions can actually reduce their intensity. The second step is allow it. Instead of saying, I need this to stop, try saying, this feeling is uncomfortable, but it's okay for it to be here. You don't have to like it. You just have to stop fighting it. The third step is stay curious. Ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Emotions often contain information if we're actually willing to listen. And step 4, remember it's temporary. This is the most important step. Remind yourself, I've never had an emotion that lasted forever. Not one. Every feeling you've ever experienced has eventually changed. This one is going to too. I can tell you after more of 20 years of helping people navigate difficult emotions, here's what I know. The goal isn't to never feel anxiety or sadness, and it isn't to avoid anger, grief, disappointment, or fear. The goal is to stop being afraid of those emotions. Because when you stop running from your feelings, something pretty incredible happens. You discover they're not nearly as dangerous as you thought they were. They're temporary visitors, not permanent residents, and often the moment we stop fighting them is the moment they actually begin to loosen their grip. So the next time you're struggling, remember this. You do not have to fix every feeling, and you don't have to control every emotion. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just sit with it. Breathe through it and trust that it's going to pass, because it always does. And even better, on the other side of that wave is often healing, clarity, strength, and peace. If you've been fighting a difficult emotion lately, I want you to remember something. The feeling you're experiencing right now is not the feeling you'll experience for forever. Because emotions are not permanent states, they are experiences. They rise, they peak, and then they eventually fall and change. And while you may not be able to control what when a feeling shows up, you can learn to stop fearing it. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What emotion has been the hardest for you to sit with without trying to push it away? Also, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who may be struggling through a difficult season right now. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the reminder that what they're feeling today will not last for forever. If you enjoy content on mental health, emotional wellness, relationships, or personal growth, be sure to subscribe as well. Follow my podcast, Mental Health with Amanda. Until next time, keep doing the work, keep showing yourself compassion, keep trusting that no feeling, no matter how intense, is meant to stay for forever. Because feelings are temporary visitors, not permanent residents.